towards a Dutch data space for cultural heritage. For that, we have Enno Meijers, who is Chief Technology Officer of the Dutch Digital Heritage Network in the Netherlands.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to talk about the work we are doing in the Netherlands. And I must say I'm delighted that we can do this in a cultural heritage session itself even. So this is very nice. My presentation will be about the work we have been doing in the Netherlands for the past 10 years. We have been working on a national program in order to improve the discoverability and reuse of cultural heritage information that is being maintained in all the different organizations in the Netherlands. With this work, and that's what this presentation is about, we think that we are moving into the notion of a data space for cultural heritage in the Netherlands. And I will be discussing a number of elements that create or that are basis for this data space. The next slide was an overview of all the different organizations within our network, and it was actually a picture showing. And the Dutch Digital Heritage Network is not an organization, it's a cooperation of all the cultural heritage institutions in the Netherlands, and it overarches the work of archives, libraries, museums, but also like archives for media output, archives for digital art, but also for like performing arts and everything that is being archived after performances, etc. So it's a really broad cooperation of organizations work together and all have tasks in the complete information about what you could say, everything that happened yesterday and before. So I was at this slide and it's just showing a picture of all the different organizations, and actually in all these institutes a lot of work on digitization has been done for decades already. But at some point, together with the Ministry of Education, Culture and Science, we draw the conclusion that finding all the pieces that are somewhere in the digital realm is very hard if you look at it from a user perspective. So if you want to know everything that is in all these archives about a certain author, or a certain artist, or a certain artwork, then it's really difficult to know where to look. And in the past years, before we started, there was the notion of creating large platforms where you aggregate all the data and then have a view on several topics of the data. But in general, it's a very hard model to work on the discovery of cultural heritage information, even when it's growing. So, sorry, yep, it's a bit slow. Together with the ministry and the representatives of the cultural heritage institutions, we formed a national digital heritage strategy that set out a policy for making digital heritage more accessible to everyone, enabling people and communities to experience heritage in the way that suits them best, and especially thinking from the user perspective that doesn't always know what the structure is of the heritage organization, where you can find information about a certain topic of a certain theme. it really needs to think the other way around. And the last year, actually, we were very happy to issue the third version of the national strategy. And these are the goals that are described in there. And the third version is still on the same line. Of course, we're not completely redoing things, but we still are focused on making heritage information widely usable, implementing this by a sustainable approach from the source to end-user applications. And starting at the source is a very important part. So we view this as a decentralized approach where we start to work with the heritage institutions in order to standardize the information they publish and the access to their information. And it's really important to start there. And we do this also with an understanding of the dynamic notion of heritage information. So for us, heritage information is not defined by what the organizations collect. So it's not defined by the collections of the organizations. It is it is together with also what the people think about heritage information and their experience with heritage information and the way they look at the history. Doing this in the decentralized approach and with the tools that we are developing and with the standardization at the source, we are in the process of building the database for cultural heritage. And we do this for the entire kingdom, so it means that we're not only looking at the European part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but also the Caribbean part, and see how we can connect the information and bring the pieces together there. So it is, sorry. So the whole program is about interoperability and standards. In 2015, we actually really started with defining a digital heritage reference architecture. And we actually started with defining the goals and defining the principles, how we wanted to work. And from there, it has been developed into requirements that we are currently implementing in systems and creating solutions for. The heritage, the digital heritage reference architecture is actually rooted in the Dutch government reference architecture. So we got a daughter of the formal architecture of the Dutch government. So we also align in that way to the broader principles that the Dutch government maintains. A very important part of our program is about implementing semantic technologies and linked data. And we have been working a lot with cultural heritage institutions to learn them about semantic technologies, about linked data. And especially we partnered with all the vendors that supply or that deliver applications for the maintenance of digital heritage collections, so the collection management systems suppliers. And currently we have requirements for all the collection management systems that want to be on the Dutch market, that they have to support persist identifiers, that their systems should be able to publish linked data, that there is a connection to the dataset register, which I will talk in the next slide, and to the network of terms, so they can also align to the shared vocabularies and the shared thesauri. And the last one is to also support IIIF for the access to to the unified access to visual materials. So if you're talking about publishing linked data, then it's of course incredibly important that you have standards and that you have shared definitions of the things you're talking about. So the notion of having thesauri, vocabularies, classification system, reference list is incredibly important. And already in the cultural heritage domain, there are a lot of initiatives that are already available. There's a lot of work on thesauri. This picture shows a term coming from the CATI AAT thesaurus, which is being very broadly used within the museum domain. And it's very important that if people describe their collections, that they can use the terms from these vocabularies, so they can say, okay, this object is about this term, and that the term is defined as a URI, as a shared definition that can everybody access. The traditional solutions for that is collecting all the data from the thesaurus and implement it in your system. But if you want to do that for multiple thesauri, then you get a very complicated connection to the system if you need to update it, etc. And for that, we developed a network of terms, which is basically not a network of terms, but a federated querying engine through all different terminology sources. And currently our installation, which we use for the Dutch Digital Heritage Network, supports over 40 different terminology sources that are real-time accessible and queryable. And it offers a SCOTS layer to the system, so you can just see, okay, this term exists and the URI can be found there. And if you want to know how it's being defined, then you can go to the source URI and collect the data that's behind it. I could do a separate presentation on this, but I have to move on with the time left. Another thing we developed, another functionality at the network level, is basically a data catalog. So it's a dataset register that collects all the dataset description that cultural heritage information publish. They describe their collections, they publish a dataset description being linked data, and the dataset register collects all these descriptions in a daily harvest actually, and builds a knowledge graph based on these descriptions. And this is an example of a dataset description that is being collected. The dataset register is DCAT 3 AP compliant. We are trying to be compliant with the Dutch application profile actually. And currently we're implementing this in, it's already implemented in over 150 organizations in the Netherlands currently. So with these components, the network of terms and the dataset register, and all the work we're doing at the standardization for the source data, so for the institutes themselves, we are creating a notion of an ecosystem where we can share the data and where we can build services on a very standardized and easy way. And actually, to be honest, we have been working on this for the past 10 years, and we are still in the implementation process. And we're, after 10 years, we're slowly moving into the direction of creating services that make use of the infrastructure we have been building so far. So that is what we are currently at. From our Dutch data space for cultural heritage, we are making connections to the European data space for cultural heritage, which of course being realized by the Europeana and partners. So we're in close contact with Europeana, but we're also making a connection to the Claria and Chockenel infrastructure, which are research infrastructures in the Netherlands. Thank you. But also going from this data space environment, we're also trying to be interoperable with other data space initiatives. And for instance, tourism is, of course, very interesting data space to exchange services and data with. I think that is basically what I wanted to share, and thank you for the patience for going along with me. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Enno, and apologies for the presentation not being available immediately. Let's go to some questions from the audience via Slido. First question, what challenges have you encountered in promoting data sharing among cultural institutions?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is the realization that the data that you share is not primarily for just presenting it on your own website or presenting it in your own environment, but that the data can be very relevant for others as well that are not directly in the mind of institutions that maintain the data. So that is something that really is about communication, and I've been talking about a lot of technology we are doing in this program, but communication and reaching out to organization and even doing knowledge programs, etc., is a very important part of our network activities as well.
Next question from Slido. Can you provide a practical example of how the Dutch Digital Heritage Network has been utilized to fulfill the goal of making heritage information widely usable?
That's a nice, challenging question. Like I said, we're still in the process of implementing this. One very concrete result we had was working together with the research infrastructure for digital humanities. And currently the data catalog we are building is directly being harvested within the research infrastructure and being offered to researchers that want to do research on cultural heritage collections. So there is a direct connection that is built upon the work we are doing. Another thing we are doing is what I already showed is we're currently building a pipeline together with Europeana to directly access the data catalog and do the collection of the data based on what we have in the data catalog. And that is quite a new model of working together with Europeana.
Great, and we have time for one question in the room, if anyone has one. Checking quick. No? Okay, so we'll move on. Enno, thank you very much. A round of applause.